what we know about Boston Bruins first-round pick Dean Letourneau, and why Jakub Lauko was traded to the Minnesota Wild on a special draft day recap episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoke B. Today is Saturday, June 29th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and sometimes on the weekends as we recap the 2024 NHL Entry Draft and what the Bruins were able to accomplish there. Before we get started, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, and dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. For those of you who may be new to the podcast, I'm a lifelong Bruins fan. Been hosting this podcast for 5 years. Prior to that, I was a full-time hockey news editor at The Score, and have been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years. And over that time, many a first-round pick has come and gone. What we know about this year's pick is that he's a big boy. And Dean Letourneau, 6'7", 214-pound center out of St. Andrews College, which is a prep school in Aurora, Ontario, just about an hour north of Toronto. It's an unusual path that he took to the NHL draft, not playing in the Ontario Hockey League after being selected by the Owen Sound Attack in the 9th round, 174th overall in 2022. He opted for the prep school route, preparing himself for Division I hockey, which is where he will play coming up in the fall at Boston College. He said he did want to play in the OHL growing up, and this is via a profile on him for NHL.com written by Adam Kimmelman about 10 days ago. He said he wanted to play in the OHL, but he took a visit to St. Andrews, saw a lot of guys that had come through there and played Division I hockey and what their careers ended up looking like. So he decided to take that route. And indeed, 3 players had been selected from St. Andrews over the previous 2 years, none earlier, however, than the 3rd round. There are a bunch of players in the NHL who played for St. Andrews, who went to the OHL or were drafted out of the NCAA. It's a great program, and Letourneau said the development he had there was unlike any other. He was playing 20-plus minutes a night. He was playing on the power play, the penalty kill, all different situations that he might come to down the road. The coaching staff was really great there. The schooling, the education was a big part for him and his family. So the fact that he could have a great education while also getting great hockey development is what sealed the deal for him there. And indeed, last year, he led St. Andrews with 127 points, 61 goals, 66 assists in 56 games, which is pretty unbelievable. He was number 23 in NHL Central Scouting's final rankings of North American skaters for the 2024 draft. Central Scouting's Nick Smith said Letourneau was very intriguing to him, has tons of potential, and can really have a high ceiling. It's hard to find a player with his size and length and with soft hands and good feet. He can make plays with sense and vision with a scoring touch around the net. Still has some filling out to do as well, and that's something Letourneau said after being drafted, that he wants to grow, add some muscle to his frame here over the summer. I'm not sure that Letourneau was Boston's first pick at the selection, meaning he wasn't the guy that was at the top of their list. I believe they were very interested in Jet Luchenko, who went higher than expected at 12th overall to the Philadelphia Flyers. Sasha Boisvert was high on their list as well, as was Cole Beaudoin, who appeared to be set to be selected by the Bruins until Utah pulled off a deal to move to 24th overall and snagged Beaudoin out from under the Bruins and setting up the decision to pick Letourneau at the 25th overall pick. Now, the easy and early comparison to be made here is Tage Thompson, who was selected 26th overall back in 2016, 6'6", 220. He was about 6'5", 195 pounds when the Blues selected him. Letourneau said in this piece on NHL.com that he indeed tries to model his game after Thompson, a big, tall centerman with skill. He loves watching his puck protection and the way he uses his body to shield defenders, something he tries to incorporate into his game as well. Letourneau has tons of potential, to be sure. And if you listen to the reaction video on YouTube, you saw that his range is probably somewhere between a Brian Boyle and a Tage Thompson. And it took Thompson some time to develop. He was, again, selected 26th overall in 2016. He spent a year at the University of Connecticut where he put up 32 points in 34 games. Took some time to develop in St. Louis's system, playing with San Antonio Rampage before being traded to Buffalo as part of the Ryan O'Reilly deal. And it took him some time to pop there as well. In fact, it wasn't until 2021-22 where he played 78 games, scored 38 goals, 68 assists, and then last season really busted out with 94 points, 47 goals. So that's 5-6 years after his draft year. The Bruins, this is a longer term project pick for them, but it's a guy who, if he hits like they hope he could, yeah, he could be a top line center for the Boston Bruins. Again, probably more in the middle 6 range for the Bruins, a big guy. He needs to, by all accounts, not only add to his frame and fill out a bit, but also be more willing to use that size to his advantage, be more physical, and perhaps develop more of a two-way game for the Bruins as well. But best case, Tage Thompson is the pipe dream, best case scenario for what he can turn into as a member of the Boston Bruins. If he can become an NHL regular and be a contributor, second line, third line center with some scoring pop who can contribute on the power play and kill some penalties, that would be great. What we don't want is for him to become kind of an Elmer Soderblom with Detroit, who's the last big guy that I can remember trying to make it at the NHL level. He was drafted in the 6th round, but, you know, he's like 6'8", 246, 13 goals, 16 assists, 29 games for Grand Rapids last season, has not been able to make the jump. Anyways, Letourneau, like I said, probably wasn't at the top of their list. He might not have even been top 3 for the Bruins, but that's who they end up with. Bit of a high, maybe low risk, medium risk, potentially high reward pick. And that's not all they did at the Sphere in Las Vegas. And we'll discuss their other moves here as the podcast continues. All right, we are moving into the dog days of summer, and I love sports. I love them so much. I really never want them to stop, but as the playoffs are over, we're done with the drafts, free agency coming up on Monday, we're getting fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to, but FanDuel lets us keep the sports going whenever we want. All we have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime we're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon for daily boosts and bonuses. The official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. While you're on YouTube, check out Locked On Sports Today, all the latest news, opinions, analysis from across the Locked On universe, free on YouTube and the Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, after selecting in the first round, late in the first round on Friday night, the Bruins were dormant until the fourth round, where they were set to make a late pick there. When it came to it, the Bruins wanted to jump up a little bit, so they acquired from the Minnesota Wild Vinny Lettieri, veteran forward, who has played in the organization previously, and the 110th overall pick, sending their original fourth round pick, which was 122nd overall, and forward Jakub Lauko to the Wild. Now, again, Lettieri is a guy who's familiar with the organization. He played for the Bruins a couple years ago, played one game for Boston, but last season, 49 points in 48 games with the Providence Bruins, which is where he will likely play the majority of his games again this season. With the fourth round pick that they acquired from Minnesota, they selected defenseman Elliot Grunewald, who is from the Cedar Rapids Rough Riders of the USHL and who has committed to Quinnipiac University for this upcoming season. 6'2", 201-pound defenseman. He was awarded the USHL All-Rookie Second Team honors with 5 goals and 11 assists for 16 points this past season. Also won a bronze at the 2023 World Junior A U19 Challenge, skating in 6 games for Team USA. He is a native of Bellows Falls, Vermont, and he was a guy that they wanted enough that they were willing to trade Jakub Lauko, and it's just a bit of a numbers game for Lauko, as the Bruins are pretty full of bottom 6 options for this upcoming season, especially after having acquired Mark Kostelic in the Linus Ullmark trade. Lauko this past season, again, he's 24 years old. He was a third-round pick in 2018. 60 games, 2 goals, 8 assists, 1 goal in 5 playoff games. And he is going to be a good energy guy for a Minnesota Wild team that's pretty cap-strapped at the moment as they continue to pay buyouts for Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. Suter being bought out again by the Dallas Stars. So they are right up against the cap, only $6 million available, and Lauko will plug in as a bottom line or bottom 6 option for them at $787, $500 for them against the cap. Lettieri, like I mentioned, likely will be assigned to Providence for the upcoming season. The Bruins do free up a little bit of cap space here, as Lettieri's cap hit is 10 or what? Yeah, just a bit less than Lauko, $775 for Lettieri, and again, $787.5 for Lauko. So they clear up a little bit of cap space. Lettieri will be assigned, and I guess they really wanted Grunewald to add some more size on the blue line. Again, going back to the first round, the Bruins, they wanted desperately to get into the first round. They pulled off that Linus Ullmark trade with the Ottawa Senators. They brought Joonas Korpisalo. That was kind of a sword they had to fall on to get that first round pick. But they brought in Kostelic, who can fill one of the bottom 6 roles that Lauko had filled. And they have quite a bunch of options down there, including John Beecher, Justin Brazeau, Jesper Bolkvist if he resigns. They have quite a few options. Patrick Brown still on the the roster as well for one more season. Lettieri, perhaps if he cracks out of camp, he's an option as well. But in an ideal world, Brown, Lettieri down on the farm, and the Bruins are able to add elsewhere with, Beecher, Boqvist, Brazo, perhaps forming a line, Kostelic being the guy to come in and out. Anyways, as they were snaked out of the Cole Baudouin selection by Utah, they decided to move up and select Elliot Grunewald, who will be going to Quinnipiac this coming season. Now, in the 5th round, they selected a young man named Jonathan Morello, a forward. He appeared in 50 games with the St. Michael's Buzzers of the Ontario Junior Hockey League last season. 25 goals, 32 assists for 57 points. He won a silver at the 2023 Junior A U19 Challenge for Team Canada East, and he's committed to play at Clarkson University in 2025-26. Now, their final pick was a 6th round selection, Loki Johansson. He is another big defenseman. He is 6'3", 201 pounds. He plays over in Sweden, so this is a PJ Axelsson influenced pick, no doubt. The thing you need to know about these late draft picks is that we're not likely to see many, if any, of these guys playing for the Bruins anytime soon. You got to go back to when was Danton Heinen drafted? Danton Heinen was drafted in 2014. He was a 4th round pick. He's the only guy that the Bruins have drafted that late that's made any kind of impact at the NHL level. Anders Bjork was selected in the 5th round that year. He did play 225 games, but the last several years, Oscar Steen, he was a 6th round pick in 2016, 60 games, but he's likely going back overseas. Jeremy Swayman, of course, was a 4th round pick in 2017, and we all know what he is. That's probably one of the better 4th round picks you'll find around the NHL lately. And then the past couple of years, only Mason Lohrei and Johnny Beecher have played at the NHL level, along with Matt Poitras in drafts since 2019. And Lauko was the 2018 pick that hit, and he's gone as well. Back in 2017, Vakanainen, Jack Stanika. You get the picture. It's highly unlikely that some of these guys will play for the Bruins one day, except for Letourneau, which is why we devoted a whole segment to him. The Bruins were desperate to get back in the 1st round, and that's the guy they ended up with there. So they trade Lauko to move up in the draft. They get Lettieri for a chance to crack the NHL roster, but probably more for his leadership and his presence down in Providence. And they select this trio of players who we'll see what they become in the future. So that's the latest from the Bruins from the draft. And that sets us up for Monday, which will be an even bigger day for the Boston Bruins because they have a lot of cap space and no shortage of options. And we'll touch on that here as the podcast continues. The free agent frenzy is going to be absolutely intriguing from a Boston Bruins perspective because they have not had this kind of money to spend in quite some time. $21.6 million with clear needs down the middle, on the blue line. A winger would be nice as well. And of course, with Jeremy Swayman still to sign, and you can pencil him in for somewhere between $7 and $8 million. So that would leave them with about 15 to spend. And a guy that we talked about on the podcast a couple weeks ago as an option is going to hit the open market, and that would be Steven Stamkos. the Lightning were well up against the cap. They made a couple moves around the draft that freed up some space, namely trading Tanner Jeannot and Mikhail Sergachev to Utah and freeing up a bunch of cap space. However, despite that, it appears as though Steven Stamkos is going to be hitting the open market on Monday, and that is a guy that I am eager for the Bruins to approach. The belief was that, or it's been reported that the Lightning, they wanted to keep him. They offered him term, 8 years, which is not insignificant for a guy who is already 34, but only $3 million per season. If I'm the Bruins, I'm coming in and going, okay, we'll match that, but reverse the numbers. We'll give you 3 years, $8 million per. You can still get very good value out of Steven Stamkos over the next few years, and then you have the flexibility to regroup once that contract runs out. Remember, this guy scored 40 goals and recorded 81 points this season in 79 games. This is still a high-end player. He would easily become Boston's second best forward behind David Pastrnak. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. If not, Stamkos, I should add, had the most points out of all unrestricted free agents this past season, by the way. If that does not work out, then we're likely looking at revisiting Elias Lindholm, who is coming off not the greatest offensive season of his career. He bounced between Calgary and Vancouver, of course, and, you know, fits the mold of what the Boston Bruins are looking for from centers, and he's the kind of guy they're definitely targeting. He had 44 points between the Flames and the Canucks last season, got off to a slow start with Vancouver, but did have 10 points in 13 playoff games, which reboosted his value. Other options, Jonathan Marchessault, who won the Conn Smythe. He's a winger, though, probably not where they're looking to spend their money. Down the middle, you have Matt Duchene, Sean Monahan, who else? Max Domi, Adam Henrique. You're not really going to be hitting any home runs with these guys. Alex Wenberg. Who else is a center that could be available? That's pretty much the big names that you're looking at. Your Chandler Stevenson as well from the Vegas Golden Knights. These are the kind of guys the Bruins are looking at. The home run, technically on paper, guys, would be Steven Stamkos, Elias Lindholm. Failing that, you're looking at perhaps pivoting to a winger or a guy like Sean Monahan, who could come in a bit cheaper. Max Domi, who had a pretty good season with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then on defense, you're looking at maybe a Shane Gostisbehere. You're looking at perhaps Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who's reported or rumored to be going to Toronto. Eric Gustafsson could be a nice, sneaky depth guy. He had 31 points, 76 games for the Rangers last season. Mike Riley is an unrestricted free agent, even though they're still paying his buyout. Brendan Dillon, Nikita Zadorov. These are all players that could be available. Alec Martinez. So it's going to be a big day for Don Sweeney. This could be a pretty defining moment in terms of setting the Bruins up for success over the next season, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the future. If they commit to 7 years of Lindholm, that's a pretty big commitment. He is already 29. He's going to be 30 on December 2nd. Hey, the day after my birthday. So that will take him into, his mid to late 30s. Do you want to be paying him $7-8 million? My preference would be to give Stamkos $8 million over the next 3 seasons. You get that offense out of him. That's what they really need. They already kind of have Lindholm types in Coyle and Zaka. What I want to see is to make a splash and add a dynamic offensive player. An Anthony Duclair I'd like to see as well. He's a guy that can put the puck in the net. Again, not sure if they will be focusing on the wings, but that's a guy that I would like to see them pick up, just as an aside. Jake DeBrusk, I would still like to see retained, but it appears as though he is Alberta bound. But it's a real crapshoot at the moment, and nothing will be known until Monday when things can become official. That is the absolute latest on the Boston Bruins here as of Saturday evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for joining me here on Locked On Boston Bruins. We will be back after signings are made, barring a trade or something big that happens on Sunday. But we'll recap whatever happens on free agency day, which should be a big one for the Boston Bruins. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. I hope you're all doing well, taking care of yourselves, taking care of each other. Happy Canada Day weekend to my friends north of the border, and get you all prepared here for free agency. Jeremy Swayman needs a contract. I would love to see that done before Monday so they know exactly what they're working with. But alas, nothing yet. All right, friends, thank you so much again. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.